This is Inside the Right. So, Tim, we are in the throes of Donald Trump's Veep stakes right now. I have a few people that I want to discuss. First among them, Kristi Noem, who is employing the tried and true strategy of murdering puppies on the campaign trail, which is a longtime favorite in politics, as you know. Anyone who claims that Kristi Noem doesn't have a real eye for politics clearly hasn't witnessed somebody shoot a dog on the campaign trail before. Is there any coming back from this?
The Cruella approach to
Yeah.
VP? I don't think so. I think we discussed. I don't. I never really thought Kristi Noem was that great of a contender. I think she had a lot of problems. Her relationship, if you want to call it that, with her advisor Corey Lewandowski, I think was something that was going to create a lot of problems for her. She's not that skilled. She's not that skilled of a politician. And I think that it was a lot of hype around her that was being pushed by Lewandowski and others. And as we've seen, her performance skills, are not really standing up to the limelight.
Well, she's trying to do the Trump thing where A, she wants to look tough no matter what happens, no matter who comes at her, and B, she won't apologize no matter what happens either. Is there any merit to what she's doing here, or is this just an example of an instance where Trump can get away with it, but nobody else can?
I think the latter, or maybe somebody else could if they were good at it.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has a lot of problems. Obviously, he's not perfect. He hasn't gotten away with everything. I kind of hate that notion that he has gotten hurt politically by, his various mistakes. But he's a celebrity. He was a legit celebrity that has a cult-like following, right? And so there are people that are going to make excuses for him
Right.
that they're not going to make for other more normal politicians. Nobody has a personal relationship with Kristi Noem. Nobody feels like they know her because she was on their TV for many years. Nobody's putting on a Kristi Noem hat, so like she doesn't have the leash, so to speak,
Yeah.
to get away with these
Yeah.
kinds of gaffes in the way Trump does.
Yeah, there's no Christie no boat parades happening in
I
Florida.
don't think so. Yeah.
Is like, what if you were working on her campaign? Well, like, I guess what are they thinking? Is the question I'm trying to get at here. Is there something to be said for like being in the news for any reason? Like any attention is good, or is this truly like is this truly like not by design? Is she trying to fix this? Because it seems like this would be the kind of thing that you would very quickly just want to like nip in the bud, so to speak, and not continue perpetuating, but she seems intent on perpetuating it by virtue of just continuing to talk about it and not kind of not do anything to pull back on it.
Yeah. I mean, I, what I'm guessing her team is thinking and she's thinking is that like she has to do damage control on this now because we're getting to VP selection time in a couple months here, maybe sooner, conceivably. And so, she couldn't let the dog, maybe if it was 3 years ago, the dog news story just kind of disappears after a while. Other things happen in the news and, she can put her head, down and kind of reemerge. That's not really an option right now. The problem is she's not good at damage control. I
Right.
like the interview with CBS was just a nightmare. I mean, on top of the dog story, you have her lying about meeting Kim Jong-un. Like you have a lack of deftness in being able to handle it. You're extending, discussing, murdering Biden's dog now.
Right. Yeah.
You're
And by the way, I'm
extending the
gonna
dog. You're
let's throw to a clip of that moment.
You talk multiple times about it. In fact, at the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket.
Do you think she actually managed to find the one thing where even a rabid Trump fan base won't sign off on, which is calling for the execution of the president's dog just because he's a Democrat?
And there are a couple freaks in my online social media mention that'd probably be cool with killing Commander. Don't underestimate how debased some of the MAGA crowd is,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I don't think. Look, let's just put it this way: if you're in the middle of a political crisis over the fact that you killed your dog, promising to kill another dog is not the path out of it. Okay, even if the other dog is a Democratic dog, I guess, or a Democrat's dog,
Yeah.
maybe. Who knows what Commander's political leanings are? So no, I don't. It's not good. She feels like she has to do this, and I just want to say, even as a strategic matter, the being really thirsty, I kind of don't get why all these people are playing Trump's game. Trump clearly wants them, to be begging for his attention. That's why they're all out doing these interviews. We're going to talk about some of these other ones, but they're all Marco, Kristi Noem, Tim Scott, Doug Burgum, all people that claim to want this job. They're all out doing interviews this weekend, and to me, that feels like potentially counterproductive. I mean,
Yeah.
when Trump picked Pence, Pence wasn't a very public figure at the time when he was governor of Indiana.
No, I mean, if you look at like who Donald Trump, his branding suggests that he wants to be this kind of a strong man, right? And
Yeah.
so what he's getting as his VP right now, by virtue of like all of these people going on air and practically begging him to be his VP, is like just these supplicants, right? Like they don't look strong in any sense of the word. They look kind of like pathetic and desperate.
Yeah, you might call them lap dogs. I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop at some point over the course of the interview. Yeah, they do. And I think that he likes that, and they can sense that he likes it. But there is this. I hate having to just psychoanalyze Donald Trump because he's so simple in a lot of ways. But there is a sense with a bully like that, right? Where they want to make you submit, right? Where they're kind of a wimp too. And so that's how they prove to themselves that they're strong. They want to make you submit. But after a while, it becomes less not fun anymore, right? Like if somebody seems so pathetic, it's not that fun to bully them anymore.
Right.
And I think that some of these guys are moving into that territory.
Also, for posterity, I want to flex here and show a video of Biden's dog and note that this is the animal right here on the screen that Kristi Noem wants dead now. So just needed to throw that out there. Probably not great optics. That was a good dog.
You didn't consider an execution of Commander while you were getting licked?
Yeah, no, that wasn't on my list of top 5. That wasn't like okay, so you had alluded to this, but on an equally dangerous note, Tim Scott was asked 6 times during a Meet the Press interview if he would accept the election results if Trump lost. He refused to answer 6 times. Is this it now, Tim? Are we like 100% guaranteed that, the same tired election denialism if Trump loses in 2024, just like he did in 2020?
I think so. This is what the Republicans have signed us up for. It's not, this is why I felt during the primary that it was, that even though I was grossed out by Ron DeSantis and Nikki, I was grossed out by almost all of them except maybe Chris Christie. Any of them I felt like would be better than Trump because of this issue, right? It's Trump will never admit that he loses. He never did before. It wasn't just 2020. It was the Iowa caucuses going back to 2016. This is part of the commandments of the Church of Trump, if you will. Now you have to believe in election denialism. So you have everyone then who wants to be part of his team go along with it. This isn't to excuse all them. It makes them worse, frankly. But, Tim Scott left to his own devices, probably if Donald Trump didn't exist and he was, this was a time warp from 8 years ago, he'd probably just be like, yeah, I'd accept the election results, right? But now he feels like he has to do this. And so that shows how corrupting Trump is. And it makes it all very dangerous, I think, as we head to November, because there aren't going to be very many, if any, dissenting voices among the existing Republicans. And you have like the never Trumpers, the former Republicans and stuff. But among the people who still want to be in Trump's party and on Fox, there's going to be very few dissenting voices because all these people are going to go along with this absurdity. And you saw it, there with Tim Scott.
Now, you just mentioned those never Trumpers. There is a decently sized faction of people in the Republican Party who aren't going along with Donald Trump. Tim reaches those people on a daily basis at The Bulwark. That's his YouTube channel that he's on a daily basis here. So for those watching right now, if you want to see and hear more from Tim, please make sure to subscribe. I'll put the link to The Bulwark right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Okay, so Tim, Donald Trump makes these claims back in 2020, and a lot of people believe him. If he makes them a second time, do you think that it becomes more believable for his base because now they're kind of primed to think that it's happened once? Or does it become less believable because it's clear that he's just going to kind of cry wolf every time he loses?
I think that the base is pretty primed to believe this stuff at this point among Trump voters. The question is, how do elites respond, and how do the elements of Trump's base that kind of don't really believe the 2020 thing but go along with it anyway, how do they respond, right? I think that the folks that are going to the rallies, the folks that were there on the mall, like those types of people on January 6th, is what I'm referencing there. Those types of people are gonna continue to go along with the lies about the election denialism. What didn't happen in 2021 that needed to happen was more Liz Cheney's, right? Like more people that said, "Hey, no, this is not true. He's lying. I'm going to be public about it." You can imagine an alternate universe where like 80% of the Republican Party leadership did that, right? I think that would have a huge difference on
Yeah.
like what on this primary, on what would have happened with voters. So maybe after a second time, some of these other people find their spines. I wouldn't count on it. We
I
haven't
mean,
seen
I
a
mean,
lot
we've
of the
seen
evidence that that's going to happen, but maybe two times might be enough for them.
to kind of push back against that though, we have seen what's happened to Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and Mitt
Yeah,
Romney. Like these people have no future in the Republican Party and politics, and so that would lead me to presume that like the rest of these guys who might even recognize that Trump is lying, they kind of see the writing on the wall, and if they haven't said anything by now, if they're not one of that small faction of Republicans who's either lost their primaries or announced their retirement, like why would they kind of sign up? Why would they kind of sign up to end their careers, this next time in November?
it's a good question. I think that if I was a betting man, I'd go your way on that. I
Yeah,
do think, two losses, right? Eventually, people feel like maybe they're being counterproductive, right? Like
totally.
maybe they do, yeah, maybe to fix if they're ever going to win again, they
Right.
have to shed this guy, and
Yeah.
maybe some people make that calculation next time. I wouldn't count. There'll obviously be a couple. I wouldn't count on it, but I think that would is the question of if whether two losses and two lies about the election is kind of the final straw.
Yeah, I mean, you would think like at some point, like they can dig in on this lie all they want, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be in power, and so they can lie to themselves and try to try to sell this bill of goods to people, but it's not going to change the fact that they will have lost the White House again and probably some degree of seats in the Senate and the House because those people have predicated their campaigns on the whole America
Right.
First agenda. But this is two elections. There's also been other elections where all of these people who've run on Trumpism have lost. It's not just really they've lost every election kind of en masse between 2018 and now.
Right.
To your point, I think there's going to come a point where they can keep the con going, but that's not going to change the fact that they probably want power, and if they recognize rightly that if they want to get it at some point, they've got to ditch this guy and the whole agenda that he's trying to sell. There was one more person that I wanted to talk about, and that was Doug Burgum. Obviously, he's attractive because he's got money. But in my opinion, he kind of poses the same risk that a Mike Pence would pose, in that I don't know that he's a true 100% believer in Trumpism, and so he might be able to finance to the degree that Trump needs him to finance the campaign. But at the end of the day, I feel like Donald Trump needs somebody who's totally loyal, who won't make the same mistake that Mike Pence did by virtue of not anointing him the winner of the election that he lost. But I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that's why you see Burgum out there. Going back to the other earlier discussion, why are these people going on TV and humiliating themselves? And why do they think that's going to help? It makes sense, I think, for Burgum, right? If again, this makes no sense morally, ethically. We're just purely talking like if he wants to be picked,
Yeah,
right? What is the right strategy? Why you would want a job with the previous person that had it, had a mob threatening to hang them, I don't
yeah,
know, but let's assume that you do. Uh, he needs to demonstrate that he will be loyal to Trump and stick with him. And the lie, this kind of absurd lie about the 2020 election is a good way to test that, right? Because you can start to think, okay, if this guy's going to go along with this BS that I made up, like that's a good sign that he's going to go along with future BS that I make up. So
yeah.
I think that's why he's out there doing it. The whole thing. It seems kind of like it would seem kind of like an absurd pick to me. Doug Burgum is not MAGA in any really meaningful way. Why wouldn't Trump want to have somebody that's a closer ally? But, Trump does get caught up in the movie element of these sorts of things, and he does like rich guys. And so maybe he's like, that guy looks like would be the VP on The West Wing. And, he has
Yeah.
enough money and he's rich and I like those things. And so I'm going to go with him. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility.
All right, well, this all raises the question, purely speculative, obviously, but if you had to guess right now, where would you put your money?
I think I'd put my money on JD Vance. I just think he's demonstrated that like the most commitment to MAGA. Don Jr., Trump's son, is pushing for it. Um, and so I don't I wouldn't, I wouldn't bet the mortgage on that. I think that, who knows what's happening in Donald Trump's brain. And I think that he likes the apprentice style of this and likes that these people are like trying out for him for a few
Yeah.
weeks. And so I don't think that he knows exactly for certain who he's going to pick. But I would guess JD Vance.
Yeah, I think if I had to choose right now, I would probably say Tim Scott. If you look at the group of Americans who Trump is ascendant with right now, it's probably black males or people of color. And so I think Tim Scott would kind of I think that Trump would view Tim Scott as giving a permission structure to black males to then, be able to sign on and come on board to his campaign. So again, I don't know if like people are really looking at Tim Scott as some like influencing factor in their life, but I think that to some degree, the way that Trump's brain works, that might offer, some type of permission
that would
structure.
definitely be a Trump's brain pick. I don't think that there are any black dudes out there that are like, okay, I was on the fence about this guy until he picked Tim Scott, like the most
Yeah.
embarrassing wingman of all time. But I
Yeah.
could see how Trump would think that that would help with them. So
Yeah.
that's as good a guess as any.
Well, we will stay on top of this for, for as long as this gets dragged out, which knowing Donald Trump will probably be, plenty of time here. Again, for those watching right now, if you want to support the invaluable work that Tim and his team are doing in kind of expanding this pro-democracy ecosystem, giving a permission structure to Republicans, former Republicans, to move away from Donald Trump and to make sure to protect our democracy moving forward, please sign up for, subscribe for The Bulwark. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Teller Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.